Subway employees, what is the strangest order you've ever had from a customer? I worked at a Subway for a couple months after high school. While working there, I had a very polite customer, who was pregnant at the time, come in every other week or so and order the same foot-long ham sandwich. What made this sandwich so strange was that she would ask for a ton of black olives, like multiple, whole handfuls of black olives. So much that it was hard to close up and wrap the sandwich without some olives spilling out. Some of my coworkers would only give her so much before they refused to add more. There were no rules to my knowledge, stating a limit on the amount of black olives a customer could request, so I always obliged. Knowing this, she would refuse help from my coworkers and wait for me to make her foot-long black olive sandwich. She would always comment that it was something she started ordering after becoming pregnant and it was the baby that wanted the olives. Some time had passed where I didn't see her come in anymore. Until one day, I see her walk in with a stroller and her brand new baby daughter. She brought her in so I could meet the olive baby. She thanked me for all the times I made her olive sandwich just the way she liked it, and then proceeded to order a ham sandwich. Only this time, she asked for just a few olives. I quit a short time after, but I still think about that sandwich and the olive baby from time to time. Story 2. Subway workers come up 9 years, managing for 4 years. It had many odd combinations, but the top one is when a drunk came in and wanted everything on the sub. And I mean everything. I explained that if he had everything, it would be very expensive, and he insisted. So I opened up a foot-long, heated all the meats and cheese, toasted and all the salads with majority of the sauces, salt and pepper. Being a very large sandwich, we couldn't close the Subway, so we had to open another foot-long and put it on top. I took 2 Subways to wrap it up. Came to 70-ish, can't remember exactly dollars. Guy paid and off he went. Story 3. We had frozen egg discs that we were supposed to heat in the oven. I say egg, but really it was more of a frozen circle of egg whites with a yellow piece in the middle that may or may not be missing depending on luck of the draw. This one guy would come in every shift I had and order just the egg circle but didn't want us to heat it up. We handed him hard, frozen, disgusting looking discs that sounded like rocks when get sex against the counter, covered in ice flakes. He barely spoke English, so the first time he showed up we were very confused to say the least. But once we understood, he was very happy with his egg hockey pucks. Story 4. I worked at Subway many years ago. There was a couple that would come in semi-regularly, and she wanted just a double helping of American cheese on white bread. No veggies, no condiments, just cheese. I never charged her for the extra cheese since I figured the veggies she wasn't getting offset it. Eventually, she started asking for more and more cheese until it was easily 10x what came on it. She must have been bummed when I quit. That cheese sandwich probably would have cost about $10 if someone who gave a crap rang it up. Story 5. Was getting breakfast at this place called the Great Canadian Bagel Company. The girl ahead of us gets a breakfast sandwich with extra mayo and then says, like a serious amount of mayo, more than you think is comfortable. The guy does a solid 4 servings and she shakes her head in disgust, shame, and is like, no, I'm actually messed up. I need more mayo. Took everything in me not to laugh as it happened. Come at her. I worked at Subway for a few months during my freshman year of college. The grossest thing I ever made wasn't a sub, but a salad I made for an older lady. She came in right before closing and she asked for a salad with shredded lettuce, cut up ham, and mayonnaise. So much mayo. I squeezed a few lines on her salad and looked up at her to ask if that was too much, and she said, oh no, baby. I'm going to need a lot more than that. And I ended up squeezing what seemed like almost half of the squeeze bottle on her salad. The top of the lettuce ham bowl she asked for was completely covered in mayo like a blanket of creamy snow. I swear the ratio of mayo to lettuce was like 3:1. She even got extra mayo in a little cup on the side, just in case. It really stuck in my memory because I remember she got so much mayo we had to prep another bottle of it before we could close. Story 6. Worked at a small-town Subway for 5 years in high school and university. We had this guy come in that we called the Mountain. He was at least 300 pounds and probably 6'5". He always came in wearing a full fleece camo outfit. Anywho, his order would always be the same, which is why I remember it so well. The guy would get a foot-long with the BBQ rib patty, the most disgusting thing on the menu, and the veggie patty, the second most disgusting thing on the menu. He would also get quadruple extra bacon, the same amount as a foot-long BLT with double meat. In addition to all the meat, he would get regular amounts of every cheese. Just to recap, at this point he has enough meat for 4 footlongs and enough cheese for 4 on one goddamn footlong. Now, here's where it gets good. This dude wouldn't get any veggies. He would ask for just salt, not salt and pepper, just salt. And the cherry on top, he would say, don't bother cutting it in half. Just gonna start at one end and stop at the other. Edit. The veggie patty isn't really disgusting, as most of you have pointed out. Every meat there is processed anyway, so it probably wasn't appropriate for me to label it as the second most disgusting. However, the BBQ probably is. The box it is delivered in is labeled boneless BBQ rib-shaped pork burger. I don't remember the exact wording, but all of those words were included in the title. I estimated the cost to the best of my knowledge and ended up in the $26, $28 CAD range. This was 10 years ago. Edit 2. All the talk about this guy's one-liner reminded me of some other customers. We had a family dinner special where you buy 3 footlongs for $20 or whatever. A guy comes in and orders 3 foot-long chicken teriyakis. Me, would you like them in a bag? Him, no thanks, they are for here. There was no one else with him. We have the cold cut combo, which has been identified in the comments below as the most disgusting meat available. One guy came in and ordered a foot-long dirty meat. Though I had never heard the term before, I knew exactly what he meant. Another funny thing that comes to mind is the funny things people would say when they order Monterey cheddar bread, Montgomery cheddar, Manta Ray cheddar, monetary cheddar. Story 7. Don't work there anymore. But the one order that sticks in my mind above everything else was one time a guy came in on the phone to order 2 sandwiches and he explained one was for his 7 months pregnant wife. So to please make it right, he has a list of exactly what she wants. So I made it exactly how it was written down, then made him and he paid, and all was good in the world. Then maybe 10 minutes later, the phone rings and I answer it. And there is this woman on the phone just screaming at me, telling me I made her sandwich wrong and how she wanted ranch instead of mayo and blah blah, and that she would send her husband in to get it remade. You know, full Karen minus the let me speak to the manager bit. So the guy comes back in and I immediately recognize him and he's apologizing profusely, explaining that his wife is pregnant and hormones and whatnot. And I assured him I've been yelled at for less. It's no big deal. I'll remake it at no charge. He has the offending sandwich. I remake it right and throw the old one away. And as I'm ringing up the order, even though it was free, it still had to be rung up at $0 for bread count accuracy. The phone rings. So I hand the man his sandwich and answer the phone, and there is this woman on the phone hysterically crying on the other end. And so I ask if she's all right, and she informs me that she called earlier and she felt horrible about yelling at me because she realized she wrote it down wrong and it wasn't my fault. And the whole time, I'm just awkwardly telling her that it's okay. No big deal. We got it taken care of. You're okay, don't worry about it. It's no big deal. And then she, still sobbing, asks me straight up, do you forgive me? And I said, it's all good, no worries. And she said, no. Do you forgive me? And I said, yeah, don't worry about it. And she asked again, but do you forgive me? And I replied, yes, I forgive you. Have a great night, ma'am. After which she hung up. I still remember that, even 7 years later, because it was the only time I've ever had a customer call back, not only to apologize, but crying about it as well. Ironically, I don't actually remember what the specific sandwich was. I want to say it was an oven-roasted chicken breast, but I truly am just taking a shot in the dark. Story 8. A guy came in with a Tupperware bowl of natto and asked us to put it on a chicken and bacon ranch melt. We're not allowed to do that, so we just made him the sandwich and he took it to his table. He came back a few minutes later and asked if we could heat his sandwich more. It was pretty clear that he'd added the natto himself and now wanted us to cook the damn stuff. He was polite, so my coworker obliged. Our place smelled like rotting rat ass for the rest of the day. Commenter? It was a salad and the entire situation was gross. So this dude wearing tan and gold, rimless sunglasses walked in and kept his sunglasses on. He tells me he wants a chopped salad. I don't remember the meat or veggies he asked for, but I do remember the toppings. After reading my name tag, he asked for olive oil. As he peered at me over his glasses, he said, I like it really wet, Lady and Luna, and licked his lips. I put in a whole bunch, but kept repeating how wet he liked it, asking for more oil. I put in at least half a bottle of oil. Then he goes on to say how he loves Parmesan cheese, like a lot of it. I shook in a bunch of cheese, but he still wasn't satisfied. I was pissed off and creeped out at this point, so I took the lid off the cheese and dumped the entire shaker full into the bowl. He was ducking thrilled. Lady and Luna, you're the best. You make the best salad. No one anywhere else gets it like you do. You're perfect. He came back several times, asking for me, and if I was there, he refused to be served by anyone else. Eventually, my shift manager stood next to me while I made the salad so the dude couldn't make weird-ass comments. He stopped coming in after that. Story 9, not a worker, but a Grubhub driver. Someone ordered a meatball sub from Subway that had nothing on it but meatballs, the sauce, and about 4 times as much mayonnaise as would go on a regular sandwich. That was it. He made 2 orders for the same thing within 2 hours, and I delivered them both. Edit. He wasn't high, and it wasn't a mistake. He said his sister tried it and liked it so much that they split it and had to order another one. According to the Subway worker, he would order the same thing 2 or 3 times a week. Edit 2. There's been a pretty good split-down thread as to whether this is delicious or disgusting, and it's made me curious. I'm about to head out for dinner, and there's a Subway nearby. I think I'll get a small 6-inch sub with nothing but meatballs and mayo and report back on how it is. Edit 3. Went into Subway and told the lady working there that this was an experiment to satisfy my curiosity and got a toasted meatball sub with nothing on it but the meatballs, some marinara, and double mayo. It wasn't terrible, but it wasn't that good either. I was surprised a bit that it wasn't instantly abhorrent. The worst part by far was the texture. Just slime on slime on slime, and the bread fell apart from it almost instantly. I will say that when the marinara and the mayo were mixed, it created something kind of similar in taste to a Thousand Island dressing, but not as tart. Not bad, but then you would get a glop of mayo by itself, and that was a bad time. There was just way too much of it. I did manage to soldier through the entire thing. Conclusion: if the mayo and marinara were properly mixed together, it would actually be a fairly tasty sauce. Maybe brushing mayo on the bread before toasting it to sear it into the bun would work, but it was good enough to where I think the next time I get a meatball sub, and I do get it with spinach, onions, bell peppers, etc., I might ask them to throw a light asterisk line of mayonnaise in there. As described and pictured though, no, that was not a pleasant experience. Edit 4, several hours later, and it is not sitting very well. Story 10. Okay, I got a few. The weirdest, or at least most disgusting one, was this guy who would come in regularly and order a tuna pizza. We would literally take the tuna salad and just put a layer of it across the pizza, then cover it with cheese and bake it for a few minutes. Holy crap, the smell that would come off of that thing was terrible. Another was guy that ordered everything on a foot long. I mean, every single kind of meat, including like 3 or 4 different types of chicken, steak, meatballs, tuna, all the deli meat, all the cheese toasted, and then adding every single vegetable and condiment we owned. And we didn't skimp on anything. He got exactly how much of each that should be on a foot long, so as you can imagine, it was literally impossible to fold, so we basically just left it open-faced and wrapped it in paper. Dude walked out after paying like $60 just for that one sandwich. Edit. Last, I had a guy who would basically eat all the black pepper we had in stock. The first time I saw him and we got towards the end of me making his sandwich, he was like, I want you to add a lot of black pepper, like just keep on going until you think, wow, there's no way anyone would want this much black pepper on a sandwich, and then double that. I want you to add so much black pepper to the point that you think it's going to be a health concern to actually serve this to me. And well, I'm not one to disappoint, so I kept on adding black pepper until he told me to stop, and by then end of it, I could no longer see any of the meat that he had on his sandwich. Like, honestly, I had probably used like a quarter cup of black pepper by the time I finished. After he paid and took his sandwich, he told me, you know, black pepper is good for your heart, and to this day, I have never looked that up to see if it's true. But this dude must be so convinced that I'm going to just believe him. There's probably more I'm forgetting, so I'll edit this comment and come back if I remember anything. Edit. Okay, I get it, people. Tuna pizza isn't that weird in Europe or whatever, but generally when you eat tuna pizza, is it tuna salad that is made of a 50-50ths mixture of bagged tuna and mayonnaise? Because that's the unsettling thing to me. I understand putting tuna, sardines, or anchovies on pizza. That seems normal to me. Story 11. I used to work for Subway back in 2008 to 2010, and we had this dude that would come in 3 times a week. He rotated between 3 sandwich choices, each one truly grotesque. 1. Foot-long white Italian bread, triple meat meatball sub, triple American cheese, not toasted, with mayo and sweet onion teriyaki sauce. 1 scoop of tuna for his cat on the side. 2. Foot-long white Italian bread, triple meat tuna, triple American cheese, double foot-long portion of bacon, toasted, tons of onions, extra mayo, 1 scoop of tuna for his cat on the side. 3. Foot-long white Italian bread, triple meat, cold-cut combo, triple American cheese, not toasted, loaded up with tons of olives and onions. Then extra mayo, sweet onion teriyaki, and honey mustard. 1 scoop of tuna for his cat on the side. Closing his sandwiches was literally a daunting task. Especially the meatball one because it was so slimy. And they cost so much, even though back then they were all $5 each, because he had triple everything on them. Though it was nice that he always got some tuna for his cat. The owner of the store wouldn't charge him for it usually because he was such a frequent customer. Story 12. I haven't worked at Subway for like 15 years, but will never forget the a-hole regular that came in and wanted a duck ton of olives and drowned in Chipotle. He was an idiot the entire time for no reason, so we all got real passive-aggressive with him and just did the prescribed 6 olives at a time and 3 lines of dressing. He'd turn red, call the owner, he talked crap enough about the manager was told to just have him call the owner, and the owner would just say they're doing it how they're trained and how the Subway requires. He'd disappear for a month or so, then repeat. Story 13. Late to the party, but I feel like everyone needs to hear about the cheese, man. This trucker comes in once or twice a week and orders a tuna sub. Before you put the tuna on, he wants the bread coated on both sides with mayo. Next the tuna, then the Swiss cheese, double portion. Then cover the tuna in ranch, then add 2 big handfuls of shredded cheese. Next more ranch. Then 2 bigger handfuls of shredded cheese. More ranch, you ask? Yes, the answer is always yes. Next is onions and green peppers. Toast it now while it weighs as much as a healthy newborn. More shredded cheese. Now 1 last quarter of a bottle of ranch. Please add a strip of light mayo before you wrap it. It was the nastiest, messiest pile of crap I have ever seen, and I used to live in a ghetto. Commentaire. At McDonald's, a guy came in and said he had lost a bet and as a result, had to order a double cheeseburger with 17 extra patties and bacon and cheese between each patty. I don't remember how much it cost, but we had to tape several wrappers together just to cover it up and keep it sort of together. I think we gave him a knife and fork to eat it with. Story 14. Tuna and meatball, hands down. Actually, runner-up would be those customers that would ask for more mayo after you gave them the requisite amount, and then ask for more. And then you're like, tell me when to stop, and they just stand there. Then the bottle starts making that farting sound signifying it's out of condiment. So you take the cap off and scoop the dredges onto the sandwich. And the customer is still looking at you expectantly. So you go to the fridge and grab another bottle of mayo and you start putting that on the sandwich. And eventually you're halfway through the second bottle. So you stop and you look them in the eye and say, how's that? And they just give you a disgruntled nod and move on to the register. And now you get to try to close a sandwich that looks like Thanos came into a soggy piece of bread. Story 15. Not a sandwich shop, but I was a pizza maker for years at a pretty nice restaurant. Think Carrabba's but local-owned and French-trained head chef. Anyway, a bus full of special needs folks and their helpers came in one day, kind of in between lunch and dinner, like about 2:30-ish. They all order food and are having a great time. Italian music blasting delicious homemade bread at the table. Everyone's having a great time. The order comes to me. Nothing too memorable except for this one specific pie. Small cheese pizza, no cheese, no sauce. I check with the server. Yep, that's what he requested. No oil, no nothing. So, I make it. One beautiful, freshly made dough ball expertly tossed and shaped into a small pizza. I stayed on top of it in the oven, popping all the little bubbles that rise up and push them back down flat. It finishes and I cut it into 6 slices. She brings it to the table. The chef wants me to go out and make sure everyone is enjoying their meal. I go. The gentleman eating that unique pizza is ecstatic, tells me in the whole restaurant that this is the best pizza he's ever had. And I truly believe he meant it. This was about 20 years ago, and I think about that table often. I've cooked and sold thousands of pizzas, and that was my most memorable for sure. I hope that guy's doing well, and I hope he is still trying all the pizzas this world has to offer. Story 16. Former Subway employee, this elderly man named Larry, would come in every other day and get a foot-long tuna. He would eat one half that day, the other half the next day. Tuna on wheat with nothing except handfuls of jalapenos. I mean, one huge fistful on each half and then some. You could barely close the sandwich. I'm sure in his old age he had perhaps lost some sense of taste, but my God, I don't know how he even could taste the tuna. Come on through. Used to work in a deli that also made some simple breakfast items in the mornings. One day a lady ordered a Western omelet. Hold the eggs. I had to specify 3 times that she did not want any eggs in the omelet. We made her a salad of diced ham, onions, green bell peppers with salsa, and she seemed pleased with this. Story 17. This doesn't start out like a sandwich story, but it will end like one. I was working at Pizza Hut, and this white trash guy, almost entirely wearing denim with a matching blue ball cap, comes in and orders an anchovy pizza. So 20 minutes later, I bring his god-awful smelling pizza to him, and he takes 2 pieces and lays them on top of each other. He looks me straight in the eye and says, "It's like eating pussy," and then proceeds to start eating his pussy pizza sandwich. Story 18. My town had a lot of foreign exchange students from South Korea, and they would always order the meatball subs with scoops of seafood sensation, which was just mayo and imitation crab, then have it toasted. It smelled horrible. Also had a guy that could barely talk. He was so high wanted every sauce on his chicken bacon ranch. It was more soup by the end. Then he gets to the register, and he remembers he doesn't have any money and walks away. My manager actually asked anyone if they wanted it. Story 19. Took my sister to Subway when she visited the mainland. She lives in rural Tasmania and had not been to Subway before and was quite nervous. When she discovered you could just pick what you wanted, she just came alive, like she had been waiting her life for this opportunity. She ordered meatball with seafood, tuna plus, and teriyaki chicken with just capsicum and pickle. I was not fazed until she asked for tomato sauce. They lady was really cool about it. Thanks for being so cool about it, Subway lady. Story 20. I've never worked at Subway or a sandwich place, but I was that customer once. When I was a kid, I had a problem with pronouncing words and was delayed when it came to reading. My family thought they could fix this by making me speak pretty much 24/7s, which included ordering on my own. We went to Subway one time and I wanted a 6-inch spicy Italian with white bread and toasted. I didn't know the name of this sandwich when I was younger, but I knew it had pepperoni and salami on it. The problem was I couldn't pronounce salami, and my family wouldn't help me order, so I ended up asking for a 6-inch sandwich with white bread, those are 2 types of pepperonis, and heated. The guy at the counter stopped what he was doing and stared at me with a blank expression for what felt like forever. He looked so confused, and that was probably the moment when he questioned why he was working at Subway to begin with. After that awkward pause, he then made my order. After my family paid and I got my sandwich, it only had 2 pepperonis on toasted bread. The guy at the counter legit thought that I only wanted 2 pepperonis on my sandwich. I remember asking them why they let this happen, and they pretty much told me that I made my bed. so I had to lie in it now. I ate 2 pepperonis and toasted bread for dinner that day, while the worker probably contemplated why he should continue working at Subway. Edit. A word. Edit 2. Guys, it's all right. It was a sandwich. Edit 3. It was a freaking sandwich, guys. I'm fine. Story 21. I've been waiting for this. I worked at a Subway the summer before and after my senior year in high school. I wouldn't say it was a job I disliked, more along the lines of a job I absolutely despised. The nonstop stream of rude and entitled customers, all of which had some smart-ass remark about your sandwich artist, TM skills, just left you feeling bitter and cold, like a bag of frozen Italian herb and cheese dough straight out of the freezer. It was closing time on a weeknight, maybe 5 minutes before we could lock the door for the day. Weeknights were usually dead slow after the post-work dinner rush, and the assistant manager, who usually closed with me, was cool with us putting up most of the tables, shutting down one of the bathrooms, 2 unisex, sweeping, the usual crap. More often than not, we didn't see a single customer after 9 p.m. In walks this older white guy, upper 50s/low 60s, absolute trailer trash. Beer belly hanging out from under his Walmart Southern Pride t-shirt, pants that clearly showed as crack, flip-flops, mangy unwashed hair. Dude was probably already 2 six-packs in when he decided to drive over to get the disgusting pig slop sub he was about to order straight out hell. Give me one of them footlongs on white. He's clearly already annoyed that I have to wash my hands before I put on gloves and grab a fresh knife. He starts huffing and muttering, "Jesus," while waiting. Go headband, put some shredded cheese on there and microwave it. Sure, boss. Already gross, but whatever. People ordered gross crap all the time. Looking at you, mayonnaise in a salad. Give me double tuna, chicken breasts, and bacon, and put the chicken in the middle of the tuna. Sure, I'll have to charge you for triple meat, and the bacon is extra. Is that okay? Yeah, whatever. So I started creating this elementary school lunch from the Shadow Realm. I'm a little pissed because normally for double meat, we would hollow out the bread to make room. Not possible when nuked cheese is glued to the bread already. He also orders 3 more cheeses on here. Toast the ducker. Toast it again. At this point, the bread is hard as a rock. The tuna has these weird dried bits on the outskirts of the sandwich. Then we get to the veggies and condiments. Give me a bit of everything. I just stared at him for a second. It already wouldn't close, and he wanted a dozen veggies on top. So I sighed to myself and grabbed the first one. Probably cucumbers. It's definitely closing time by now. Go on and put a little more than that now. If you've ever noticed, the Subway has specific amounts of the stuff they put on. 6 tomatoes, 6 cucumbers, 4 cheeses. Normally, for a nice customer, we don't charge for extra veggies, but it didn't stop there. He ordered double, and sometimes triple of every single ducking vegetable. The whole time being rude as possible about why I wasn't putting as much as he liked, telling me he could make it better and faster, asking why some items were already put away in the fridge that he wanted. All right, now, give me some extra mayo, mustard, ketchup, sweet onion, ranch, oil, and vinegar. I sighed, starting to break. Sir, we unfortunately don't carry ketchup. Well, goddamn boy, you better find some then, shouldn't you? I bit my tongue and called my ASST, manager out of the back. He explained the same thing, and they had a mini back and forth that needed with him saying he would call corporate tomorrow about it. Whatever. Meanwhile, I am at my breaking point with Mr. Krabs' appetizer. This ducking monster is dripping with veggie water, sopped in mayonnaise, and definitely is not going to close. He noticed at this point because he started watching me intently. You're gonna have to push down hard on that now, boy. Better make sure it's sealed tight. I don't know what the duck a sealed sandwich is, but as soon as I tried to close it, the entire thing just collapsed on itself. My hands are covered in tuna ranch mustard globs and trying desperately to save it. This guy loses it. Are you goddamn retarded? Work at a sandwich place and can't even make a duckin' sandwich. Sir, I'm sorry, but you ordered a large amount of items extra. I can definitely make you a salad. Why? I don't want no damn salad. Get that manager of yours and let's see you do it again, or this'll be your last night. Sure. Clearly almost half an hour after closing, my AM comes out and refuses to let me make it. We toss his entire first sandwich straight into the garbage. He makes the exact same sandwich, microwaved cheese, 4 or 5 meats, an entire ducking garden, and a tub of lard on top. Surprise, surprise. The crap falls apart again. My AM tells me to go ahead and ring him up. The guy starts screaming, "I ain't paying for no goddamn sandwich. That ain't what I ducking ordered." He starts to storm out. My AM yells, "Sir, if you don't pay, we'll pull the security footage and file a police report." He does not want that. Pissed off and half drunk, he comes to the register. His total is like $45 for one sandwich. Best part? He makes it a combo with a dozen raspberry white chocolate cookies. Have a nice day, sir. Get off, you piece of crap. Storms out, drives over the curb as he wheels out. The next day, I sliced my hand open trying to open a BBQ sauce bag, and the manager tried to write me up for it. I quit right before lunch. Damn that guy. Damn shitty Subway. Story 22. I worked at a Burger King my junior year of high school. Not a sandwich shop, but play along. I was on specialty board. chicken and fish mainly. This order came through for an original chicken with aged mayo. Age in the training stood for heavy or extra. I asked my manager if it was a typo, and they said no. This guy comes in once a week for that sandwich. I swear, by the time my manager said the sandwich was proper, the mayo was thicker than the chicken patty itself. I felt like I needed to bathe afterwards. Story 23. I worked at Subway for some time with really close friends. I dare say that we created some of the nastiest crap known to man. The worst would always be the seafood sensation, which was imitation crab. On its own, not the worst thing. When combined with the other horrors available at Subway, it can turn into a real gut bomb. I've seen it combined with sweet onion sauce, tuna, always gross amounts of mayo, jalapenos. The worst was when toasted. This imitation crab would ducking curdle under the toaster and stink up the whole store for hours. The one that takes the cake, seafood sensation, foot-long wheat, toasted mayo, and crumbled up oatmeal raisin. Edit. Since this is getting attention, bonus Subway story. As I mentioned, I worked there with some of my best friends. We constantly got into prank wars because of the minimum wage. My friend was going on vacation for a week, so I devised the master prank. We had lockers where we kept our shirts, visors, personal items. I took one of our poly gloves and filled it with tuna, milk, mayo, seafood sensation, and vinegar. I cut the tiniest hole into a finger of the glove to create a slow drip and taped the monstrosity to the roof of his cubby. He returned from vacation to the nastiest, stinkiest glob that man can conceive. Story 24. When I worked at one, we once had a woman and her kid come in, and without exaggeration, I could say she was 300 plus LBS. Her kid looked like that would be his path later in life as well. They were both incredibly nice, but very strict. The mom did the order and made it clear that she was ordering for her precious angel, and it needed to be exact. They wanted a 12-inch meatball marinara with no meatballs, just the sauce. Next, every pickle that we had left on the front line was dumped into this thing, easily. More than 5x the regular pickle amount. Enough pickle that I could make 2 solid rows of pickle on this behemoth and have pickle left over that did not touch the bottom bread. Next, it would be extra double toasted. After one round of toasting, the bread was already hot and the pickles totally baked of all life. They could not, however, be prepared for the reign of thermal torture that was about to assault them. After one more full 12-inch toasting cycle and one additional 6-inch toasting cycle, the bread was burnt a shade of black in most exposed parts. The tomato sauce was toasted to a crisp, and the poor pickles were disgusting yellowish crispy ghosts of their former glory. No other veggies would be unlucky enough to be added to this sandwich, bubbling hot and stinking of desiccated pickle. The final step in this abomination was to retrieve another small cup of refrigerated, still cold tomato sauce from the back and dump a line of that on top of the broiled, charred ducking brick of pickled tomato nonsense now currently smelling up my line. The kid was giving this whole situation a very pleased, Pugsley Adams-esque smile from the back as I wrapped the sandwich, gross charred bread flaking off as I wrapped it up. Then they bought a bag of Miss Vica's jalapeno chips, a soda, and left on their merry way so I could start cleaning up. The only thing that made the situation more bearable is that, despite being strict about the preparation, they were very nice and happy to get the food. Story 25. Worked at Subway and had a customer ask me for guacamole. She insisted I give her the guac without avocados. I explained there's no such thing. Then she pulled a Karen and asked for the manager. The manager explained what we all already know. The lady got louder and pointed at a pic on her phone she took last time she ordered it. The picture was of pico de gallo. That, ladies and gents, was her avocado-free guacamole. I took great joy explaining guac and pico de gallo to Karen of Subway and why they made 2 words to describe 2 different items. Facepalm level, infinite. Story 26. This one guy used to come into my sub shop at least twice a week. Always ordered a steak and cheese with extra ketchup. Except you couldn't put enough ketchup on it. We could use over half a bottle and he would still come back and ask for the bottle because packets took too much time. Story 27. Back in high school, I worked at the local Subway. Every night, 30 minutes to an hour before close, this large African-American man built like an NFL linebacker would come in, and no matter how many or what kinds, would clean out whatever was left of our cookies for the night. 2 oatmeal raisins, a dozen chocolate chip, a smattering of everything. Didn't matter. He'd purchase every single cookie left and leave. We nicknamed him Cookie Monster. Story 28. Don't work there. But they ordered a veggie delight on flatbread, but the only veggies they wanted was olives, and they asked for it to be absolutely doused in oil and vinegar. Like it looked like a soggy waffle with olives sticking out. Story 29. Not a sandwich story, but in high school I worked at the movie theater. This dude asked for extra butter on his popcorn. So I squirted his butter on while giving him the nod, but it wasn't enough. He kept asking for more, and I was a little a hole, so I just kept going. After the movie, dude walked out and had a massive butter stain in his banana area on his pants. I was very proud of myself. Another time, this dude wanted butter in his Crunch Bits chocolate box. So I put butter in and watched him drink the butter chocolate mix. Story 30. When I was a server, I waited on a group that looked like a mom, dad, and two adult-age daughters. The mom and dad were fairly in shape, but both of the daughters were extremely obese. Trouble walking and all that. The daughters each get chicken sandwiches and like 4 adult-sized orders chicken fingers. After I bring all the food out, the daughters ask for more mayonnaise. I'd given each of them a small ramekin on the side with their sandwiches already. So I bring each of them a good-sized ramekin full of it, and they laughed and said they're going to need way more. I was like, okay, how much would you like? Would 2 more ramekins be enough? And one of them asked if we had soup bowls. I put the order for a soup bowl full of mayo in, and went back to the kitchen to clarify, explain, and as soon as I opened the door, one of the chefs just said, "What the duck did you just order?" So they get their soup bowls filled with like approximately 2 cups of mayo, and they ate it with their chicken tenders, just scooping as much mayo as possible on each bite. I'm not trying to fat shame, and I know I definitely indulge in unhealthy food from time to time and enjoy some more unusual food combos. But seeing them consume 2 soup bowls worth of plain American mayo made me feel so nauseous. Story 31. I don't work there anymore, but this one guy came in asking for a grilled cheese. It took me a while to talk him out of it by explaining it would be crazy expensive, as I'd have to ring it up as a veggie delight with a ton of extra cheese, and still wouldn't taste good. Story 32. I've never worked at a place, but I was that guy once. I go to In-N-Out and order a 10x10 custom order. That's right, 10 patties smashed between 2 pieces of bread. The employees just looked at me like, not another one. But I didn't care. I had been away from the States for so long I would have eaten an entire In-N-Out cow had they served it. They split it up into 2 5-patty burgers, and I ate them both in one sitting. Story 33. Worked at Subway for a couple years back in the day. Strangest order ever. 2-foot-long seafood delight. Basically imitation crab meat drowned in mayo. Subs, double meat, wheat bread, toasted, no toppings, except for heaping amounts of salt on both. Never saw this customer again. Story 34. I had a woman order a vegan quesadilla. The way we usually made quesadillas is this: beans, corn, a lot of cheese, some chicken, and sour cream. Her order ended up being just beans and corn in the quesadilla. Nothing else. She paid like $10 for it. Story 35. Worked at a Japanese restaurant and had a guy come up and ask if we had any of the green bottle of Kikkoman. We kept that behind the counter since most people would just use the regular, so I handed him the bottle. He sits back down and as expected, he uses it for his hibachi order. What I didn't expect was him to also pour a ton of it into his Pepsi. At least he opted for the option with less sodium, I guess, but still seemed bizarre to me. Story 36. Worked at McDonald's, someone ordered 10 hamburger with nothing, just the bread, and also order 1 hamburger. I thought this was some kind of trolling, but at least they'll pay for it. Then a few weeks later, I realized someone tricked the system to get it for free instead. I saw a video on YouTube of a guy using the new ordering system at McDonald's and ordering exactly what I made. Nice one, but it's patched already, so don't even try to do it because you're gonna waste money. Story 37. I had this guy ask me to drown his sandwich in mayo. Like, I crap you not. There was so much mayo on there, all the toppings slid out when I tried to cut it in half. So nasty. Edit. I didn't even work at a Subway. But these stories you guys are sharing are great. I love it. Story 38. A lady came in with her toddler grandchild and ordered a kid's sandwich for them. She explained that they only wanted pickles on their sandwich, no meat, no cheese, just pickles. Now, according to Subway standards, I was supposed to put 2 slices of pickles on it, but even I knew that was going to be as skimpy as duck sandwich, so I put like 5 or 6 on it. Mind you, we make the sandwich in front of the customer, and I always asked, "How does it look?" before closing it and wrapping it up. She said it was fine, and I finished making her sandwich and rang her up, and they went to sit down and eat. As I'm helping another customer, the lady comes storming back up to the counter and interrupts me, complaining about how there aren't enough pickles on the sandwich. I told her I would gladly put more pickles on the sandwich, but explained to her that I specifically asked her if it looked fine, and she said yes before I finished wrapping it up. Story 39. We had a Subway across the street from my high school, and one day my friend Anthony and I went after smoking a lot of weeds after getting his sandwich. He spots the cookie display and asks them if they could please take the tray out so he could get a closer look. The Subway guy didn't even really seem that fazed and obliged. Anthony then scans all the cookies with his extremely bloodshot eyes for a solid minute or two before they light up with joy. And he exclaims, "That one! That's the one!" I hadn't seen anyone filled with such pure and innocent joy probably since I was a kid. It was incredibly obvious that we were both very stoned, and it just amazes me that this employee wasn't that fazed by some guy examining each individual cookie. Just goes to show how much weird crap Subway employees have to deal with all the time. Story 40. Bagel sandwich shop worker here. Got a regular who gets a blueberry bagel toasted with butter and strawberry jelly and strawberry cream cheese, then layered with 2 eggs, double bacon, Swiss and American and cheddar cheese. Sometimes jalapeno cream cheese on the side. Baby who hurt you. It's impossible to cut after all that smear and sandwich. Story 41. I worked at a Jimmy job and someone wanted a tuna sandwich with BBQ on it. Sounded gross, and we didn't have BBQ anyway. Later, we randomly tried adding BBQ chips on top of tuna sub just to see what it was like. It was bomb. It's now my go-to order. I still haven't tried actual BBQ sauce, but now I understand the flavor combo at least. Edit. Due to the high volume of comments, I felt compelled to order JJ's this afternoon. Tuna sandwich with lettuce, a little oil and vinegar, bacon, pickles, BBQ chips to put on it, and some kicking ranch. This is all y'all's fault. Story 42. This is my time. So, after my 3 years at Subway, this is the wildest sandwich I've seen. So this guy got a meatball sub, which is disgusting in the first place if you've ever worked Subway. Then he continued to ask for numerous veggies. That's not too strange. People do that sometimes. Then he asked for like 4 different sauces on it. And here's the kicker. He asked for 2 chocolate chip cookies crumbled onto it. Chocolate chip cookies on a meatball sub with a load of veggies and a disgusting combination of sauces. So this was my coworker who made it, and my regional manager was also in the store at the time. The manager continued to use him as an example in the regional group chat, as my coworker didn't question it at all, which is extremely impressive to me. I've rambled on for too long, but I've got a bajillion Subway stories if anyone wants to hear more. Story 43. I worked at a Subway during high school. One day, I had a kid come in, probably 11 years old, with a $20 bill and a big smile on his face, which was a nice change since our Subway was located right next to a PC Netcare, and we usually had very rude kids come in. Anyway, I greet the smiling young lad as normal and ask what I can get him. In what sounded like Arnold Schwarzenegger straight out of a Terminator flick, he says, "Get me a foot-long pastrami if you want to live double meat, young." I chuckled and started with his order, cooking up the pastrami and putting it on the bread, cheddar jalapeno, young. After loading up his bread with the meat, he gets this glimmer in his eye and tilts his head down, staring into my soul like Pennywise, and says, "Mayo." So I grabbed the mayo bottle, and after applying a normal human amount of mayo to the bread, I set down the bottle. He smiles, keeping his Pennywise smile, and says, "More mayo." So I obliged, putting again as much mayo on it as I already had. Before I could even set the bottle down as it sputtered out the last bit that was in it, he again demanded, "More mayo." Needing to replenish the mayo at this point, I went to the fridge to grab a large mayo bag and refill the bottle. While I was refilling the bottle, the kid's eyes light up again, watching the half-inch hole in the gallon-sized bag of mayo. And I know what he wants even before he says it. Can you use the bag? Now, about this time, I figured the kid was messing with me, so I stopped and asked him if he really intended to eat it, or if this was all just for show. He assured me, with dire seriousness, that he fully intended to eat the sandwich, and that mayo was his favorite thing in the world. With renewed confidence, I proceeded to indulge the little fella. Sirens wailed and strobe lights flashed as the torrent of mayonnaise began to overwhelm the levees, washing over the poor, defenseless citizens of Pastrami Town in a tsunami of suffocating creamy horror. As the tide subsided, and the tiniest bits of pastrami barely protruded from the colossal mountain of mayonnaise on top, it was finally, at this moment, that the kid nodded in affirmation. The epic flood of biblical proportions on display before him, he was satisfied at last. As I closed up the bread and mayonnaise oozed out the sides, making a huge mess inside the wrapping paper, he smiled and clapped his hands in ecstasy, jumping up and down in excitement. He paid for his sandwich, around $14, and tipped the rest of the $20. On his way out, he turned around and smiled at me, saying, "I'll be back." Sure enough, next week, he returned, ordered the exact same thing. Story 44. I worked in a pizza place, and at one point we had a man walk in and order a personal cheese pizza. Then he specified that he wanted no sauce, then added that he wanted no cheese, then decided he'd like to add uncooked cherry tomatoes as a topping. We ended up cooking a slab of dough and throwing some cherry tomatoes on top. He then proceeded to use the pizza crust as a plate for his tomatoes, then threw the crust away after finishing his tomatoes. We had a salad bar with the exact same tomatoes as well. Story 45. Not a Subway, but I worked at a movie theater where we sold concessions. A guy came in for the 3 o'clock screening for a movie. I don't remember which one, some horror movie that was popular 8 years ago, and ordered 10 large drink cups. We had a self-serve soda fountain. Then he ducking left. He just took the cups and left. I was like, what the actual duck? Story 46. I worked at Which, think Subway meets Jimmy John's with 50 different menu items. And we had a sandwich called the Elvis Witch, peanut butter, banana, honey, and bacon. Sounds weird, but very delicious. My manager's husband would get this sandwich, then add guacamole, and swore by it. One time, he even added chicken salad to the Guac Elvis Witch. I was never brave enough to try it, but it sounds repulsive. Story 47. Not a Subway employee, but I was behind a guy that got what amounted to a sandwich worth of olives on his sandwich. He kept asking for more, and put what I think was the whole bin in there. Story 48. A woman wanted the inner, fluffy part of the bread removed, leaving only the hollowed-out shells of the hoagie. Proceeded to have them filled with mayonnaise and toasted. Story 49, current manager at Subway. By far, the strangest customer I've ever had was a man who would come in once or twice a week for a span of 3 months. About 2 years ago, every time he visited, he would enter the store and linger in the lobby for several minutes, looking at our menu before leaving and returning quite some time later. I'm not sure why. He always got the same thing. He was a very particular fellow. He needed his cheese cut up and sprinkled across his meat, and his veggies were peculiar. He would ask that we place a single cucumber, tomato, and pickle at each end and the very center of his sandwich, as opposed to evenly distributed across the entire thing. He then asked that a single dollop of mustard, honey mustard, and brown mustard be topped in each stack of veggies before cutting the sandwich in half. Then, as he would eat, he would somehow unlace and remove each tennis shoe with only his feet. We would always take guesses where he was at with his meal based on the state of his footwear. Then he just stopped coming one day. Story 50. I worked at Subway for about a year. Here was the weirdest for me one. Cold tuna, hot chicken teriyaki, American cheese, buffalo sauce, onions, pickles, and oil and vinegar. This was surprisingly ordered by multiple teenage boys. They'd come in 2 or 3 times a week. They'd also mix every soda into one. 2 foot-long Italian bread, 4 slices of turkey, 2 slices of American cheese, 1-inch green pepper, 1-inch red onions, absolutely drenched in oil and vinegar and cut into 3. This weird-ass lady would always order this. It had to be exactly an inch of both. She'd make me get the little ruler we used to measure the kid-size sub and watch me out exactly an inch. The sandwich had to be dripping and soggy. She claimed she was a health nut and that it was super good for her health. She'd also get the large 32 ounces of Diet Coke and a side of cucumbers. Normally, she'd eat it at the table right in front of me and continuously make eye contact. 3, a meatball salad. Truthfully, I think this guy just hated me because he'd watch me struggle with the process. Get a salad bowl, add spinach and green pepper, olives, pepperoncini, breakfast egg white, cucumber, onion, and avocado. Then get the meatballs in a paper towel, then sit there getting all the sauce off. No cheese. He was on a diet. Then on top, he got chipotle and teriyaki sauce, 3 macadamia cookies, and a cup of coffee. Asterisk side note, he would order this first thing in the morning. We opened at 7 a.m. and the meatballs typically weren't ready yet, but he would sit and wait. He also would hold the creepiest smile ever, showing his gums because the smile was so big the entire time. Edit. I also remembered there was a guy who'd come in and get a single cookie nearly every day. He worked at the grocery store next door. He'd buy a cookie and then use our bathroom for an hour or so. Our bathroom was customer only. He always left a huge mess in the bathroom and would only use the women's toilet. He never even ate the cookies, though. He'd put them in the women's trash can. Edit. I worked in a very bad part of town, so we got all sorts of weirdos. There was one lady who always seemed high. She'd order a 6-inch on wheat and get it toasted with cheese, and then only cucumbers, but she wanted the middle part of the cucumbers removed. So it was just cheese and basically cucumber peel with mayo. Could never wrap my head around it. Story 51. One time my buddy kept asking for carrots every time he ordered. It was supposed to be a joke, but one day he showed up and they had shredded carrots. He doesn't even like carrots. Story 52. I used to work at a Subway that was not corporate-owned. This means we didn't have to follow the portions required by corporate-owned stores. Some kid came in with his mom, and he asked for a 6-inch sandwich on white bread with mayo and a handful of olives. I asked him, "Are you sure?" He quickly replied, "Uh-huh." So I grabbed the biggest handful I could and plopped it on the sandwich. Best part is his mom's jaw dropped, and when she paid, she said, "I can't believe you actually did that. No other store has ever actually done that." That one order made my entire night. Story 53. My first job was actually at a Subway, and there were these 2 guys who would come in and my coworkers would scurry to the back because they didn't like serving them. I had no issues because their sandwiches weren't particularly disgusting. They were the traditional things ordered off the menu, but these guys would double stuff these suckers about 6 times over. They would challenge each other to see who could order and finish more. The worst was making the tuna sandwiches. Nobody should ever have so much mayonnaise that the gloves fall off the maker's hands. I finally had to start limiting their options after they tried it with meatballs. That being said, they were always super polite and tipped well. Good people. Story 54. I worked at Subway for about 4 years and saw some dark stuff. A regular would get a flatbread foot-long with just marinara, cheese, and yellow mustard. No meat or veggies ever. A coworker of mine was once asked to toast just the cheese. Just a slice of cheese. She was brand new and didn't know how to say no to customers yet, so I came out online to her scraping a single piece of melted cheese off of a piece of paper and onto a sub. Lots of people eat meatball subs with copious amounts of mayo. Y'all are freaky. In the middle of a huge rush, a smart-ass kid who had been loud since he entered the store trying to impress his friends asked me to put cookies on his sub. I just said no and moved on to the next customer, and he was so surprised at how curt I was, he stopped being obnoxious. If you order the tuna, stop. Seek professional help. Story 55. Not a Subway employee. But I was once standing behind a guy that said, "Just fill me up with olives." And the woman working behind the counter proceeded to put 2 handfuls on olives on a 6-inch sub, and the bloke goes, "Perfect." Very strange. Story 56. This one was actually on the menu. In high school, I worked for this failed franchise chain of restaurants called Roly Poly Sandwiches. Probably failed due to naming themselves after the term that at least we here in the Midwest usually used to refer to pill bugs, which is gross, and also sandwiches, which is misleading as what it was basically Subway, except they only did wraps, no Sammys, and they had a much wider selection of items for your wrap. While some of these were actually quite tasty, grilled fajita-style chicken peppers wrap with spicy ranch was actually amazing. One sandwich that you could always order year-round was the Thanksgiving wrap deli turkey, mashed potato, stuffing, gravy, cranberry sauce, Swiss cheese, all grilled. Now, all on a plate, those things work, but smashed and melted all together in a wrap was basically a weird, way too many flavors at once burrito. But the worst part was the year-round thing. A total of 0 other wraps involved mashed potatoes, cranberry sauce, stuffing, or gravy. You know, most of the wrap. So, about once every other week to once a month, honestly, we would make up some cheap-ass Instabox-style stuffing and mashed potatoes and open up a new can of cheap-ass pre-made gravy, toss out all the old crap, which is looking real nasty by now, and put the new stuff in like Tupperware in the fridge anytime you ordered that crap. You got a weird funky mostly too. 3-week-old ingredients Thanksgiving log that I bet came out looking more or less the same as it did going in, just much more painful. Story 57. Wasn't working there, but was a fellow customer. Pearson stared at the menu for 2 minutes, then asked the Subway sandwich artist what the difference between the chicken and turkey was. The person responded very dryly, "Will, one is chicken and one is turkey." The customer nodded and said, I'll have the turkey then." I had to walk out of the store. I was laughing so hard. Story 58. Worked at Jimmy John's in college. Not the store you're looking for, but since we were next door to a bar and stayed open late, the place got packed with drunk people. I worked a lot of closing shifts, so I got to deal with these people a lot, and I loved it. Every now and then, someone would just come up to the register and drunkenly say, "Just give me whatever you recommend, whatever your favorite sandwich is." And it was up to me to decide what kind of sandwich they got. Mind you, Jimmy John's doesn't have the largest menu, so I couldn't get too creative. But I enjoyed making drunk people tuna and salami capicola sandwiches, and they always told me it was really good Lamau. Also, Adam Devine, the guy from Workaholics, puts an insane amount of mustard on his sandwiches. Great guy, but I was just drowning his sandwich with mustard, and he kept asking for more. Story 59. Is anyone else going through this thread hoping with fear to see their own order? I say this as a customer whose Subway orders always end with, "And a literal fistful of pickles, please." Story 60. Subway. They're the ones who force you to empty an entire bottle of mayo on their sub. Recently, I had 2 separate customers order tuna with chicken teriyaki on top. So much oil and vinegar that the sub just melts. I get asked if we have boiled eggs at least once a day. On a sub? Boiled egg? Salad. But no meat, no cheese. It's just a bowl full of olives, mayonnaise, and vinegar. I've worked at this place for so long, the gross orders don't even faze me anymore. It's how rude people are. For example, we've come to the part where I ask what you would like on your sub as far as veggies. You said everything. I heard you want everything. What you meant to say was you hate tomatoes, olives, jalapenos, spinach, etc. Side note. An alarming amount of people do not know what spinach is. They go, "Oh no, don't put leaves on my sandwich. Why are those there? It's spinach." No, it's not. Okay, Lamau, I love my job. I love my job. I love my job. Edit to say I also had a woman come in and order a cold cut trio sub. I put the cold cut meat on. She proceeded to argue and yell at me that trio means 3, and I only put 1 meat on there. I had to stand there like an idiot explaining to a middle-aged woman what the duck bologna is exactly, and that the cold cut, being basically that, is made up of 3 different kinds of meat within itself. People never cease to amaze me. Story 61. Worked at a BBQ place that mostly sold sandwiches. I worked on the call-ahead phones for a while, and we had a customer call up and asked if we could put the entire sandwich combo, sides and all, through a blender. The poor guy had jaw surgery and hadn't eaten anything but fruit smoothies for almost a month. We didn't even own a blender, but this was one of those never say no to the customer places, and I could literally get written up for refusing a request. I got my manager on the line, who tried his best to explain exactly how grotesque his order was, but the guy wouldn't budge. Long story short, we bought a blender. Story 62. Dr. Hot Girl would fill up half her burrito bowl with hot sauce every time until it looked like soup. I know it's not a sandwich place, but I worked at Chipotle for a year. We had a very attractive young lady come in regularly, who would order a burrito bowl. She would ask us to fill the bowl to brim literally with the hottest sauce we had, which would be about half of the volume of the bowl, and the other half was the rice, beans, and meat, etc. I asked her one time how she can handle that much hot sauce. She said, "It's an addiction and it gets worse. Also, I think my insides are dead." Then she gave us a tip. She always tipped well, so we always gave her about 14 of hot sauce each time she came in. Story 63. I have a few. The everything. The young guy came in and asked if it was possible to get a sub with everything. All the meats, salads, and sauces. We ended up using 2 subs opened up to be the top and bottom. Somehow it held together. It was super expensive, and old mate ended up throwing most of it out after eating what he could with a knife and fork. Pickle man. He would order 2 subs, one for him and one for his wife. His was pretty normal, but hers would be ham and a mound of pickles. Literally 1/2 of the small, square tub. Arsehole bank manager's son. This was the strangest way of ordering. He would normally get a pizza or meatball sub, but would rattle off his salads as fast as he could possibly speak. I would stand and just stare at him until he repeated them slower. He thought he was so cool and smug, but we all hated him. Duck you, Morgan, and your ugly arse Jeep. Story 64. Can I get some bread? We serve sandwiches. Can I get a sandwich with only bread? It's for a duck. Oh, then no charge. Next time you want Subway to bring a duck. Apparently at Subway, ducks eat for free. Story 65. 6+ year Subway employee here. 6 inches flatbread with breakfast egg, meatballs, and Swiss toasted. Then spinach, cucumbers, and sweet onion sauce. Finished off with guacamole. Sometimes he would switch out the meatballs for tuna. Story 66. I once ordered him a chicken sandwich with tomato. They gave me a chicken sandwich with a whole ducking tomato sliced up in the sandwich. Not the answer to this question, but thought this was my best opportunity to share it. Story 67. Holy crap, my perfect question. I don't work at Subway. I was in line behind this person. I hope this doesn't get completely lost. Lady ordered a foot-long turkey with everything and macadamia nut cookies on it, then asked the worker to soak the cookies in oil and vinegar. It was disgusting. Story 68. I used to work at McDonald's in high school and had a young adult-age dude come in and start ordering Taco Bell items. He was also practically screaming the order, he was so loud. We let him finish his order, and then tried to inform him that he was at McDonald's and that there was a Taco Bell a couple blocks away. He insisted he was at Taco Bell and proceeded to repeat his order in the same booming voice. We kept trying and got no different results. Assumably, this man was drunk or high, or both. One of the employees came over, went around the counter, and tried to pull him from the restaurant, but he wouldn't budge. Eventually, we just rang him up for a bacon cheeseburger, some nuggets, fries, a shake, and a soda. He received his food and was perfectly fine. He thanked us and left. Nobody's sure what happened to him after that, but we have a joke that he then ordered McDonald's food at the Taco Bell. Edit. I'm a git who put Baconator instead of bacon cheeseburger because my few brain cells can't even remember the menu of the place I worked. Story 69. When I worked at Subway, we had this regular customer who we referred to as the tuna salad guy. He would order one of 2 things, a tuna salad, which is unusual but not odd, and a meatball salad. He was a total git, barking orders at the sandwich artists, never saying thank you, and expecting every artist to know the exact amount of topping for his salads. They were always the same. For his meatball salad, he would ask for the meatballs to be cut up, to be added to his greens, and then to put in the microwave. 30 secs, no more, no less. I just found it pretty gross that he wanted his whole meatball salad warmed, and it was heated in those flimsy plastic containers, which I doubt was supposed to be microwaved. One of my last days there, I actually told him that, when you speak to me like that, it hurts my feelings as I am trying my best. He was ashamed, I believe, and blurted out a curt sorry before speeding off. I just hope it may have gotten to him in some way and that he treats other food service people better in the future, though I'm personally doubtful. Story 70. I worked for a local sub shop and had a guy one time ask for enough extra mayo that it's about 1 inch thick. I also had a regular who asked for extra onions on his sandwich every time. And when I had to tell him once that we were actually out, he left and came back with an onion he asked me to dice and put on his sandwich for him. Story 71. I used to work at a Subway. The weirdest sandwiches were always the stoned kids who came in at like 9 p.m. on the weekend. Foot-long chicken teriyaki with a scoop of tuna on each half is one that stands out in my memory. Another one was a regular. He worked at the grocery store around the corner. He would come in once or twice a week after work and get a meatball sub with an egg on it. Eat another I just thought of. I worked at a bagel shop, and this rather plump man would come in a few times a week and get a bagel toasted with extra butter, 4 portions of bacon, that's 12 slices, and a slice of cheese. That thing was literally dripping in grease. At one point, he stopped coming in for a couple months, and we all thought he must have died of a heart attack. Story 72. Had a very stoned guy come in and ordered a steak sub. He wanted every extra that he could get for free on it. I asked him if he's sure. He wants everything. It ended up being steak with ketchup, mustard, mayo, BBQ, ranch, honey mustard, Thai chili sauce, lettuce, tomato, onion, pickles, olives, jalapenos, banana peppers, melted butter, and a few other random things I don't remember. He made me go through all the screens on the register to make sure I didn't miss anything. This thing was an abomination. The bread was so mushy from all the sauce. He sat in the dining room and ate the whole thing. Story 73. I was this customer as a kid. Very picky when I was young and used to order 2-foot longs of just American cheese. Not even toasted, just bread and cheese. I loved it. Story 74. I worked at Subway for a while. This young guy would come in every day around 3 p.m. and get steak, chicken, and bacon on an Italian herb and cheese, adding shredded cheese, cheddar, and American. Then he'd finish it with mayo, chipotle, sriracha, and banana peppers. He was always really friendly, and we'd shoot the crap while I made his sandwich. After about 3 months of this, he started calling it the barn burner. I stayed about 7 months total. He ordered that sandwich every day, Monday, Friday, for the whole 7 months. When I told him it was my last day, he gave me a 12-pack of Guinness. I frequently wonder where he is now. Story 75. Prob's a meatball sub with pickles and mayonnaise. He ended up not having enough money to even pay for it, so we kept it. I ate it because I was hungry. Was surprisingly really good. Story 76. Started with a double roast beef footlong that is already so much beef that the sandwich can barely close. Then they asked banana peppers and then more banana peppers and more until they had as much banana pepper as roast beef. I assume they had to eat it like a burrito. Story 77. My first job was at a firehouse sub. If you've never been there, all sandwiches are hot. Normally we toast the bread and steam the meat and cheese, then drain it because it gets soggy. But one day this one guy comes in and asks us to steam the entire thing. Meat, cheese, bread, veggies, all of it. After triple checking to make sure that's what he actually wanted, we did it and pulled out this soggy, wet mess of sandwich fixings, barely held together by bread that was falling apart. The guy said he loved it. Story 78. I haven't been working at Subway for long, about 10 weeks. But once there was this 60-year-old guy and my boss recognized. Told me that they'd do his order personally, so I stepped back and watched. Everything was normal, until the olives. My boss said something like, "There's one thing missing. I'm not quite sure what it is." The old man smirked and replied, "Oh, you know, just a few olives." My boss then took the entire circular Cambro and dumped it over the sandwich, turning it black. You couldn't see the lettuce on the sandwich anymore. He was a happy man. Story 79. I worked at Quiznos for a few years, and one day I had 2 people come in, look at the menu, and then order a pizza. I just kind of stared at them very confused because we had nothing resembling a pizza on our menu. Story 80. Had a roommate who went to McDonald's and ordered a double hamburger, but just the meat patties. When I asked him, why just the meat? He explained he was making spaghetti with meat sauce and he didn't have any meat. He crumbled up the patties and just mixed it in with marinara sauce. Story 81. My husband works at Chick-fil-A, which I think if that counts as a sandwich place, but a customer once asked him for a Sprite with several Chick-fil-A sauce packets mixed in, and they happily drank it. Story 82. Not strangest order, but strangest offer. I don't know if this is the norm in the States, but I went to a sandwich place in Pescortnix, ordered my sub, and at the end the guy asks, "Do you want that wet or dry?" Not wanting a dry sub, I said wet. He then grabbed the whole sub in a set of massive tongs, opened the gravy pot, and dumped the whole sandwich in. What a heck. Story 83. Someone at a Jimmy John's I work at gets a tuna sandwich with insane healing amounts of mayo. Like you go to wrap it, and it squirts out about a 4th cup of mayo out both ends. They also get no veggies and extra vinaigrette sauce. I'm surprised that the wrap doesn't instantly turn into mush. It's nasty, in Cleveland's voice. Story 84. Not a sandwich place worker, but I remember vividly one time being in a Subway and the woman ahead of me in line ordered a salad with lots and lots of mayo as the dressing. Just looking at it made me want to vomit. Story 85. Foot-long wheat flatbread, no meat guacamole, extra guac again, no veggies, sweet onion sauce. More sweet onion still haunts me to this day. Story 86. I worked at a Subway a long time ago, and a guy would order 2 full bags of lettuce on his sandwich every day. Imagine 2 pounds of lettuce on some bread. He would order often enough that I knew to go in the back and grab 2 full bags just for him.